It's a very cold and windy 15 degrees out in lower Michigan today, so hopefully that doesn't affect the filming. But let's go out and have some fun with the Ontario Woodsman Bushcraft knife. Hey everyone, Ben from Living Survival, and today we're taking a look at the Ontario Knife Company's Woodsman Bushcraft knife. Now this knife is the bigger brother of the field knife. It's a lot longer at 9.18 inches for the blade and 14.97 overall, so almost 15 inches of knife here. Of course it is full tang. It's got a very nice American walnut handle. You can see there's a little bit of a choil there in front of the handle and going on into the 5160 blade steel. You can see on the other side there, 5160 OKC and made in the USA. Let's talk a little bit about the sheath here. It's got a pretty nice nylon sheath from DeSantis company. They make the sheath for this one. It's got a pouch up front. It comes with a ferrocerium rod, which I have in the pouch, and then it also comes with a paracord lanyard for the knife itself. Pretty nice design on the sheath. You know, it's just your typical nylon sheath. You've got room for a belt there in the side, and then you do have this adjustable retention clip at the top. I do like how they put the little D-ring in there, or the little ring, so that you can extend it out. It unvelcros and you can extend it out. I found that it does work both ways, both left and right-handed, but when you put it in and use it as a left-handed knife, you definitely have to extend that strap a little bit to get over the bulk of the handle, but it does work. I noticed there is no webbing on the outside of this sheath, and that would have been a nice addition, because typically on my bushcraft packs and things like that, if it does have the webbing, I'll attach it to the side, especially for knives in this size range. Now typically what I would use a large knife like this for would be batoning and chopping, so let's go ahead and see how well it does at that. Nice, right through. This is some of that very hard red oak that I usually test the batoning capabilities with. A little bit of shock through the handle, and it's got that very sharp 90-degree spine, so it's going to beat up your baton quite a bit. Nice. Get the snow off my chopping block here. Now the other thing I would use this knife for is obviously chopping. So let's chop this piece of wood a little bit and see how well she does. So that is a frozen piece of wood. It's definitely quite sharp, but it just doesn't chop as well as some other knives that I've tried. Batons very well, doesn't chop as well. And in addition to that hot spot, it is slipping out of my hand just a little bit. Even if I grab it really hard and give it some hard chops, that walnut handle makes it pretty slippery. Now I do have a wool glove on. Let me take that off just so I can get my hand gripped onto the actual handle there. Doesn't really help with slipping at all. It still slips in the hand. So you'd either want to wear some gloves that had a little bit of texture to it, or maybe just rough this walnut up a little bit to give it a little bit more grip. You can try to chop some of this vine here. the knife just almost wants to fly out of my hand. I definitely would tie a paracord lanyard around, which they actually do give you. But I would definitely tie that around if you're going to be doing some heavy chopping with this knife. It just wants to fly right out of my hand. Now that scallop on the end there does help so that it doesn't. And I'm holding it in the most comfortable grip, which is just, you know, right in the middle of the knife there, but it does slip around quite a bit. So let's see how it feels choking up on the knife using that choil. Now this choil is pretty sharp as well, and I think they should really round that over. You get your hand in there and it's actually pretty sharp on my finger, and it leads right up into that blade. Now on some knives that's okay. On this knife, I wish that wasn't such a sharp point, because you could certainly catch your finger on there and it wouldn't feel too good at all. Now it doesn't feel too bad using it like that, but again, it's pretty sharp on my finger right here. Definitely would probably wear gloves with this knife. There's just a lot of sharpness to it. The handle could be smoothed out a little bit more, but it is nice and sharp, that's for sure. Nice sharp flat grind. It just wants to constantly get stuck in that wood too. Yeah, I mean, it does okay with the fine work, but again, my finger's pressing right up against that sharp part of the blade, and the choil itself is so sharp. Believe me, I'm trying to like this knife, but it's just a lot of hot spots for me and a lot of sharp edges. So let's try chopping again on something that's a little bit softer, like this pine here. So it worked a whole lot better on something a little bit softer and not so frozen. And that was a pretty good sized chunk there, so it did a little bit better on something a little bit softer. I do really like 5160 steel. It does hold up really well to all the abuse you can put it through. There is no chips, dings, dents, or anything like that. So for me, it's just the overall feel of this knife. Definitely not the blade steel. It's a nice chunk of 5160. Some minor improvements to the handle might take away some of that shock and some of those hot spots for me, and rounding out this choil a little bit would be a good idea in my opinion as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video today, taking a look at the Ontario Knife Company's Woodsman Bushcraft knife, the bigger brother of their field knife. This one just doesn't do it for me. There's too many sharp edges, there's too many hot spots for me, not only when doing finer work, which I wouldn't use that large of a knife anyway. I mean, I'd rather use my Swiss Army knife than use that knife. It does work if you had to use it, which I guess is why we test these knives. Batoning, it did an excellent job for a flat grind knife. Generally, I like a saber or a Scandi grind when I'm batoning. For a flat grind knife, something such as like the BK9, it does do a pretty good job. Again, the handle did give me some shock when batoning, but not as much as it gave me when chopping. When chopping, not only did it not chop as well as some of the other blades that I've tried, but it really did send some shock through the handle. So I don't know if just rounding out that handle or replacing it with maybe a TPE handle would cut down on some of that shock. I will say that this is my second Ontario knife, and the first Ontario knife that I tried gave me that same problem. A lot of shock through that handle. With a decent sheath, I do wish they'd add some webbing on there to attach it to a pack. For example, I could attach it to the side of the pack I'm wearing today and not have to put it inside the pack if I'm not wearing it on my side, which is generally not something I do with a large chopping knife. I generally will have like my Bushcraft size knife, 4-inch blade, 9-inch overall on my side. For a large chopper, I'd like to attach it to either the front or one of the sides of my pack, and then I can just pull it out of the pack and put it right back in when I'm done with my chopping or batoning. So this is a gauntlet review. I'm going to leave some links below to the gauntlet.tv where you can check out my review and all the other reviews to come on this knife. It's about $100 last time I checked. You can get it on Amazon for $115. Now that is with free shipping, so I'm going to leave some links below if you want to check that out. Please give this video a big thumbs up for me. Share this video to your friends and family on social media. You can leave me some comments below in the comment section. And as always, guys, if you haven't already done so, please click that red subscribe button for more videos.